In a significant shift in the global supply chain, India surpassed China in smartphone imports to the US in the second quarter of 2025. New data from market research firm Canalys shows that India's share of smartphone imports to the US jumped from 13% in the second quarter of 2024 to 44% in 2025, a year-on-year increase of 240%. Meanwhile, China's share fell sharply, dropping from 61% to just 25%, a decline that wiped out nearly two-thirds of its market presence. India's rise is largely fueled by Apple's strategy to diversify its supply chain. In recent years, the company has accelerated its China Plus One approach, shifting much of its production capacity to India. Since the beginning of 2025, Apple has been assembling and manufacturing the iPhone 16 Pro models in India. While China still handles large-scale production of the Pro models for the US market, Apple plans to ramp up India's share of global iPhone production to 25% in the next few years. This goal is already taking shape. Industry observers see Apple's moves as key indicators of change. Against the backdrop of uncertainty in US-China trade relations, the company's supply chain adjustments are not only a response to potential tariff risks, but also a part of its long-term global strategy. Amid ongoing US-China trade tensions and global supply chain restructuring, Apple has moved much of its production from China to countries like India and Vietnam. After the trade war began in 2018, Vietnam quickly became a key manufacturing hub for Apple in Southeast Asia. By 2024, the number of local suppliers in Vietnam increased from 14 to 35, taking on major assembly tasks for iPads, Apple Watches, and AirPods. In 2025, Vietnam is expected to produce 20% of global iPads and Apple Watches and 65% of AirPods. Geopolitics and the narrative of decoupling have significantly impacted Apple's operations in China. As the US-China tech competition intensifies, Apple, representing American tech giants, has inevitably been affected by geopolitical tensions in the Chinese market. Data shows that Apple's situation in China has become increasingly difficult in recent years. According to global market research firm Tech Insights, Apple's revenue in Greater China for the first quarter of fiscal 2025 was $18.5 billion, a decline of 11% compared to the previous year, and below market expectations of $21.3 billion. In the second quarter, revenue in Greater China fell 2% to $16 billion, marking 7 consecutive quarters of negative growth. Beyond Apple, other US tech and consumer giants like Tesla and Starbucks are facing challenges in the Chinese market. Starbucks, which once relied heavily on China for growth, is now facing increased competition. Meanwhile, under the guidance of CEO Elon Musk, Tesla has begun diversifying its risks, recently placing large orders with Korean manufacturers. Analyst Xie Jinhe has warned that more US companies are likely to encounter trouble in China as tensions between the two nations intensify. As a result of the trade war, the Chinese government has begun restricting the use of foreign-branded smartphones like the iPhone. While there is no formal law, internal directives have been issued in at least 8 provinces, banning employees in government offices and state-owned enterprises from bringing iPhones to work. While regular consumers can still purchase iPhones freely, demand in the public sector has been sharply reduced. At the same time, the Chinese government has introduced subsidies, offering thousands of yuan in purchase incentives for domestic brands like Huawei, Honor, and Xiaomi. High-end iPhones are intentionally excluded from these subsidies, creating a clear advantage for local brands. Some observers argue that the goal is not simply to make it easier for consumers to upgrade, but to push them towards Huawei Mate, Honor Magic, or limited edition Xiaomi 15, keeping high-end iPhones out of reach. There's a larger story behind these measures. The Chinese government, backed by both central and local finances, has used subsidies and tax incentives to protect the domestic mobile phone industry, pushing local brands from followers to leaders. The goal is to transform the smartphone market into one dominated by domestic products, supported by government policies. Senior analyst Chu Shifeng at the Taiwan Economic Research Institute said that under the current geopolitical climate of the trade and tech wars, China will continue to support domestic brands. Subsidies and government bans on Apple products are obstacles to Apple's growth in the Chinese market, especially as China's economic downturn makes it harder to boost demand for high-end smartphones. As the global smartphone manufacturing focus shifts, with Canalys reporting a move from China to India in the US market, an unexpected development took place in Dalian, a coastal city in northeast China. Apple, a symbol of China's high-end consumer market, announced the closure of one of its flagship stores. On July 28th, Apple China posted a brief announcement on its website, signaling a major shift. The Apple Store in Dalian, Liaoning Province, would close on August 9th at 8 p.m. This marked the first time Apple publicly announced the closure of a direct-operated store in China. Apple's Dalian Parkland store opened on October 24, 2015, marking the first Apple direct-operated store in Dalian and a second in Liaoning province. From the start, it was seen as a symbol of technology and luxury, located in the high-end Parkland shopping center, often compared to Beijing's China Central Place. Over the past decade, the store served not only as a place to showcase Apple products, but also as a hub for customers to experience Apple's ecosystem. Reports indicate that Apple has closed direct operated stores in China before, though this isn't a common move. In 2020, Apple shut its original store in Beijing, but opened a larger, more modern location in the same district just 2 days later. However, the situation in Dalian is different. Apple hasn't announced plans to open a new store nearby, making this closure a true exit rather than a simple relocation or upgrade. This news sparked discussions online, with some speculating that the decline of Dalian Parkland, once a high-end shopping district now seen as a quieter, low-tier mall, may have contributed to Apple's decision. The apparent shift reflects two broader trends. On one hand, manufacturing is moving towards Southeast Asia due to geopolitical and cost factors. On the other, consumer behavior is adjusting under pressure from both macroeconomic forces and local retail challenges. One online observer suggested this could be the start of a larger domino effect. The decline of Parkland Shopping Center appears to be the immediate trigger for the closure. Some online users pointed out that the mall has fallen from its original high-end status to a more underused, lower-tier shopping center.
我看到很多新闻评论，马上就联想到
Apple's direct operated store in Dalian closed, and I saw a lot of news commentary immediately linking it to the rise of domestic brands and the idea that Apple is failing. Some people even said that because the Apple store in Dalian is closing, but another one is opening in Shenzhen, it must mean that the Dalian market isn't good enough. I think these speculations are nonsense. The real issue is with a shopping mall. Parkland is already failing and about to close, so Apple had no choice but to pull out. I stayed near Parkland last summer and even went to a popular dumpling shop there. After eating, I walked around the mall and discovered that there were very few customers on most of the floors. The busiest place was the Apple store. A lot of people went there. There's another domestic phone store in the mall, which is fairly well known, but compared to the Apple store, it had almost no foot traffic, probably only about 1/7 or 1/8 of the crowd. So even though people keep saying Apple is failing, I think the bigger issue is that many commercial complexes are struggling, and that's a huge problem. Locals have also raised concerns on social media, noting that high-end brands like Michael Kors and Armani have already left the mall. Insider reports confirm that Parkland Shopping Center has faced financial difficulties with legal disputes since 2022. In February, the mall's major shareholder took control of leasing and operations, leading to the departure of brands like Coach, Kenzo, MCM, and UGG after their leases expired. For a brand like Apple, known for its premium image, staying in a mall losing its appeal no longer made sense for its strategy. However, the trend of declining commercial areas is not limited to Dalian or China. On March 2nd, a video from Shanghai South Square Underground Passage showed many stores either closing or up for lease. The videographer noted that while the area used to be bustling, nearly 70% of the stores has shut down.
以前这边全是店，怪。
The South Square of Shanghai Railway Station used to be packed with people. Now, let's take a look at the foot traffic. Is it still crowded? The underground passage to Line 3 used to be full of shops, but now it's all been torn down. All the shops have closed. Out of 4 stores, only one is still open, and it's about to close too. There are only 2 shops left, but the rest are all shut down. Around 70% of the stores are closed. This used to be a place with no vacant storefronts. It's unbelievable. You could really feel it when you're here. Look, there are just 2 stores now, and everything else has shut down. This is Shanghai's busiest area, the largest train station in the city, with 3 subway lines, Line 3, Line 4, and Line 1. But the south and north squares of Shanghai Railway Station are closed down. The only store still open is a Family Mart convenience store. Other than that, most of the shops here are gone. Earlier in January, a Shanghai-based vlogger revealed that Chongming District's once thriving Baiyi Road was facing store closures and leases being transferred. The vlogger warned that business was struggling, urging caution for potential investors.
如果一条街的商铺
If more than half the shops on a street are for rent, you should be cautious about entering them. Hello everyone, this is Baiyi Road in Chongming. Let me show you around. Here's the Baiyi Canteen, which has been closed for years. This is Suning, and it's gone bankrupt. Over here, we have a milk tea shop, and this children's clothing store has been closed for many years. Moving on, this is the southern part of Bai Road. YRC is closed, as is this Redwood furniture store with clearance sales. Over here is Burger King, which lasted for more than a year before closing, certainly losing millions. This storefront has been shut for 3 years. Going forward, here's New Balance, clearing out its store. The jewelry store is closed, and so is this cosmetic shop. This fast food store is closed, and so are these others. This is my store. Keep walking forward. This video is continuous with no edits. This one's closed too. Moving ahead, this 361 store has been up for lease for many years, with no takers since last year. The X-Step store has closed and is now being used for clearance sales.
In June 2024, Japan's Isetan Mitsukoshi Holdings closed its Isetan department store in Shanghai's metro city. Before the closure, customers were seen taking photos outside the store as a farewell. Sociologists suggest that the decline in traffic to shopping districts and malls in China is closely tied to the broader economic climate and residents' purchasing power. At a basic level, consumer spending has been weak. Data from China's National Bureau of Statistics shows that in the first half of 2025, the growth rate of disposable income was low. The Consumer Price Index dropped by 0.1% compared to the same period last year, with a slight increase of 0.1% in June. Core CPI, excluding food and energy, only rose 0.7%, indicating a slow recovery. When prices don't rise, it shows that consumers are cautious about spending, particularly on non-essential items like shopping or entertainment. This caution is also evident in the increasing acceptance of secondhand phones. Historically, Chinese consumers have been wary of used products due to concerns about quality and lack of after-sales support. But as costs remain a concern, more people are opting for secondhand devices.
I
bought a secondhand iPhone 16 Pro Max for 7,199 yuan, and it should last me at least 7 years without slowing down. The key is that after 7 years, its resale value should still be around 1,500 yuan. When you do the math, not only did I save money, but I also got the status. As long as Apple doesn't go under, I'll keep using Apple phones. I'm the poor person you talk about. Go ahead and insult me all you want. On the production side, deflationary pressures are continuing to affect market sentiment. In June, China's Producer Price Index dropped 3.6% year-on-year, marking the 33rd consecutive month of declines. The pace of decline has also increased compared to the previous month. As prices for production materials and intermediate goods continue to fall, corporate profit margins are shrinking. This has led to a decrease in investment and expansion, with less money flowing back into service industries and retail. Finally, shifts in consumer behavior reflect these broader pressures. With a burden of housing loans, rising education and healthcare costs, and uncertain job prospects, consumers are focusing more on essential and cost-effective purchases. Spending on entertainment and shopping mall visits has naturally decreased. A Reuters analysis highlights that ongoing trade tensions, high debt levels, and a sluggish real estate market have all contributed to the slow pace of China's consumption recovery, with consumer confidence still lagging behind. Associate researcher Dai Ziyan at the Chung Hua Institute for Economic Research in Taipei told Voice of America, "In the Chinese market, the first priority for survival is scaling up and achieving economies of scale. The second is focusing on the high-end market. I value experience, but due to the trend of downgraded consumption, consumers are now prioritizing price over experience. In the view of many online users and observers, the closure of the Dalian Parkland Shopping Center store has taken on a larger significance. Some on X have even described it as a symbolic event in the US-China decoupling. Similar views are being expressed widely online. Experts believe that this interpretation is not without merit." On July 31st, financial expert Xie Jinhe posted on Facebook under the title Apple's China Variables, offering his perspective on the matter. He called the store closing a strong signal indicating the immense pressure Apple is facing in the Chinese market. Xie analyzed that Apple is being squeezed by domestic brands like Xiaomi, Vivo, and Oppo, with its market share continuing to decline. If the situation does not improve, Apple may face a fate similar to that of Samsung phones in China. He also warned, the closure of direct-operated stores may be just the beginning.